On a whim this weekend, I decided that it was time to replay The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And this was kind of an out of nowhere thing for me because I played the game somewhat recently when they released the NSO expansion, I believe in 2020, right? Was it in 2019? I don't know how long it's been, but they released like the NSO expansion. I played Ocarina of Time when it came out. I played all the other N64 games that came out day one, and obviously I love the game, right? I've always maintained this is one of the best games ever made. Still feel that way all these years later. And there's always this thing that happens every time that like I play the game where like I feel almost as if like, oh, I've played the game like dozens and hundreds of times. Like I've played this game to death. Like it's boring now. Um, I just probably should play something else. And there is like some truth to that, that like maybe the game is short and compact and things like that. But with the most recent playthrough, the one that I just did out of the blue, that like yeah, I feel like playing Ocarina of Time. Like I realized just how good the game actually is. Like every single time I boot this game up. Again, I'm playing this on NSO. Like every time I boot this game up and like play it and like see like those animations, those character models, the combat, the items, like the general structure, like exploring the world. Like I've played this game like dozens of times, right? Like it is just a phenomenal experience every time. And like in a lot of ways, it's just I think a big reason that this game still maintains an audience even today is the fact that like how well paced it is. Like I've said similar things about A Link to the Past, how like nothing really feels like filler, how you can just kind of go to your destination, and like there are like hints as to where you're supposed to go. Like there are indications in the overworld, like where you're supposed to go and how you're supposed to get there. Like NPCs you can talk to who will like point you in the right direction or something. But like in these older Zelda games, like you don't have to go through these like story segments, right? You don't have to like go through the Iliad quest like in Twilight Princess. There's nothing like that in Ocarina. Like there are like some items you have to get in order to progress, but like it feels very natural, it feels very organic, and it really lets you just kind of like explore at your own pace. And I was kind of surprised, playing Ocarina of Time, on stream, like how often I was just like, oh man, Talon's not here. You had to like talk to him in a Kakariko village to get him to come back. I wonder what he says. I wonder like oh yeah, Malin has like the course race here. Like oh man, like there's some weird continuity errors here with like the whole like Ingo thing and how like apparently it's been several days since you last left when in like typically most players just go right back and see what's changed. Like there's like so like it's a lot like how I think young like a lot of people play Breath of the Wild, right? Where like I play this game and I just get like super enveloped in the world and the structure and the continuity and stuff like that, like making fun of certain things or like talking about things that don't make sense. Like I got to Zora's Domain last stream and we were just kind of talking about like the frozen how the domain like stays frozen over and how it's not like really all that apparent like where the Zoras actually are and stuff like that. How the domain never actually unfreezes like it's supposed to. Like whether or not they could fix that in like a remake or like whether they would do that or not. Like it's like it was an interesting like thing like going through this game and having all these experiences and just like kind of realizing just how spectacular the game actually is. Like this is a really cool, insanely cool game. Like it just like really does a great job blending like dark elements in this children's game, which I think is like I think it's unmatched in that regard because I can't think of anything that like handles so many strong topics with like the like overthrowing the king and like sending Zelda on the run and like having Link grow up an orphan and like things like that. Like that makes it like really accessible and like relatable in a lot of ways. Like I think more than any other Zelda game, especially like the newer ones, especially like Tears of the Kingdom, like you actually feel this sense that like Ganondorf is a real threat to the world, right? You skip the 7 years and like you come out and like you see like Castletown is messed up. You go to Kakariko and realize that like everybody's living in fear. You go to like Kokiri Village and like everybody has to spend all their time inside because like there are monsters everywhere, right? You go to Death Mountain and all the Gorons are getting fed like to the dragon, right? You go to Zora's Domain and everyone's frozen over. Like you go to Gerudo Village and Gerudo Town and like you have to deal with these enemies you've never seen before who are like aligned with Ganondorf, and it is an incredibly cool, like memorable, engaging, just experience. Like in a lot of ways, like it feels more like a pure video game than a lot of things that gets made today. Like I have to wonder like if this game even now has an audience for people who that have never played games like this before or like just getting into 3D games because honestly like I feel like a lot of kids I know people who have like who still like play A Link to the Past as like their first Zelda game, right? Like I know plenty of like younger people who played A Link to the Past as their first Zelda game, and I have to wonder if like that's also true for like Ocarina of Time for like the first 3D Zelda game, because this is the one that has a really good like entry level just structure at the beginning with like fairly easy to understand dungeons and mechanics that like slowly ramps up with a really great like difficulty spike after the time jump. Like it really is like it's interesting like to see the overlap between this and A Link to the Past because a lot of people will try to tell you that like Ocarina of Time is just a rehash of A Link to the Past with like a similar structure and a formula, but like in reality they're way different. They have like way different themes, they have way different ideas, different dungeon designs. Like it's remarkable how different like the Forest Temple is to like the Dark Palace, right? They're two completely different things, and I really love both for what they are, but like thinking back on it, like having played both of these games back to back so much, and like there are a lot of similarities between them, but there also are a lot of differences, right? There are a lot of things in Ocarina that carried over to subsequent Zelda games. Like for a long time, this was like the template for Zelda. This was modern Zelda. I suppose like with the advent of Tears the Breath of the Wild formula, I suppose that's modern Zelda, and this is like I don't know the 3D era, like the Ocarina era, I suppose we could call it. Like I've been trying to like divide like Nintendo periods into like kind of periods for a long time. Like you had like the golden age when like all this stuff was established, all the iconic franchises were established, like from 1981 to 1994. And then you have like the silver age where like they tried reinventing all of this stuff, like with Donkey Kong Country and like stuff like that. And then you had like the revolution with like the Wii, and now you have like the new golden age, like where we're at now, where like this stuff is like more popular than ever. It is it's weird because like the way people act now that like people pretend that like Ocarina is not a big deal, but like this is absolutely one of my favorite things ever. Like it's not just one of my favorite games or one of my favorite Nintendo games or my favorite Zelda games. Like this is a life-defining thing for me. Like this is a big deal, right? Like this is a game that like I've always been very attached to, that I've always been very fond of, that I just love to death. And yeah, coming back to it, like you really get this sense that like this game is like I hate saying better than you always thought it was, but like there's this sense that there's th- that in a lot of ways like you keep expecting that like to get bored of it or that like you'll find something you also you like more or something, and like to a certain extent a lot of that is true, right? There are definitely plenty of things about Ocarina, like about Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword that I think did did things better than Ocarina, but like at the end of the day, like Ocarina was like a genre-defining masterpiece when it came out, and is kind of nothing can really take it away from that, right? Nothing can really take that away from it. Like, and the game is still relatively solid. Like, I was talking when I was fighting the Stalfos in the Forest Temple, how like Dark Souls, the developers admitted this, how like this influenced Dark Souls, right? Like, there are so many like examples of how this game, this specific game, like influenced the entire industry, and not like the fake way that people like to say that like the Last of Us influenced gaming or whatever. Like, this is a real innovative thing, like a real trailblazer in that regard. And and there are just like so many things about this game that are just phenomenal. Like even now, like the boss fights are a lot of fun. The dungeons are great. The pacing is great. The adventure always feels grand. And in a lot of ways, I wish there was like more to the game. Like I wish it never ended. It's one of those things that I always feel kind of sad whenever I have to like turn the game off. this weekend, when I was streaming it, I found myself like really struggling to stop streaming it. Like I was just like, okay, let's do the Forest Temple. Okay, let's do the Fire Temple, and then we'll stop. Okay, we're in the ice cavern. And like we ended up like in the fishing hole instead of going to the water temple and like trying to catch the Hylian loach, which I've never actually caught. Like it was it was interesting like streaming this game and like having these like getting into like the sidetracked by like things that you don't necessarily do every playthrough, like whether it's like the mask quest or the fishing pond or like the horse race, like there are things about this game that like just are weirdly timeless in a way, and I think fans really look back on this game very fondly, but it's kind of like Tears of the Kingdom, isn't it? Where like this is a great game, a life-defining thing, but it's not something we obsess over. It's not something we talk about. Like this game has a status symbol as being the best ever, but like unlike Undertale fans who will religiously defend everything like that Undertale is and like dispute like allegations, proven allegations of plagiarism, and like the fact that the game isn't all that great. Like for us it doesn't really matter because it's just a game, right? Like it's a great game, the one that we really love, but like there definitely are like more important things in life than simply just obsessing about how great Ocarina of Time is. And in a lot of ways, I hope this is something that will be remembered as that will be like played and enjoyed for a long time, but like never forget that there are other things in your life to be enjoyed.